Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Every man needs three people in his life. Every man needs a Paul. Every man needs a Timothy. Mm-hmm. Every man needs a Silas. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You need a Paul, a spiritual leader, a mentor, somebody who keeps you accountable.
Right.
Right? You need Timothy, that you are a mentor to.
Yes.
That makes you responsible.
Mm-hmm. And
you need a friend that walks alongside you, that can be honest with you, that you can be vulnerable to, right? These type of people that you could do ministry with, mm-hmm. right? That position is different than your Paul and your Timothy position, right?
Welcome to Real Man Talk, discussing the tough issues facing men and their families every day. Here's Anthony Curnutt and Kyler Sowell.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Real Man Talk. Today we're going to continue our talk on spiritual leadership. And today's going to be just a tad bit different than the rest of them, right? So we've been talking about different aspects of spiritual leadership. Today, kind of it is an aspect of spiritual leadership, but at the same time, it's what helps us come along in our spiritual leadership.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that, yes, we've discussed being a spiritual leader. We've discussed being a spiritual leader in a home. Mm-hmm. To our wives, to our children, right? One of the things that help us become a spiritual leader is the people we surround ourselves with.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which also is an aspect of our spiritual leadership.
Yeah.
When you are a spiritual leader, you influence everybody around you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, again, part of that is who we are, who we have ourselves around with. And I've said it a million times, and I will continue to say it a million times, mm-hmm. because it's so important.
Yes.
You are a sum total of the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
Right. And every man, if you're going to be a spiritual leader, every man needs three people in his life. Every man needs a Paul. Every man needs a Timothy. Mm-hmm. Every man needs a Silas. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You need a Paul, a spiritual leader, a mentor, somebody who keeps you accountable.
Right.
Right? You need Timothy, that you are a mentor to.
Yes.
That makes you responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a friend that walks alongside you, that can be honest with you, that you can be vulnerable to, right? These type of people that you could do ministry with, mm-hmm. right? That position is different than your Paul and your Timothy position.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that position will change a lot less than your Paul and Timothy position.
Right.
Right. Because, the goal is that you will outgrow your Paul.
Yes.
And your Timothy will outgrow you.
Right.
Right. That hopefully. And your Silas is steadfast.
Yes.
Right. Those friends.
Yep.
I can think of people in my life, people like Josh Brooks. right? That we've been friends for almost as long as you've been alive. And
it's because I'm young.
You're young and we're old. And, but those are steadfast friends. Those are friends, no matter what's going on in our lives, they've always been there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And those are my Silases, right? At one time, Josh was seen more as a Paul in my life. Now I would view him more as a Silas, right?
Yeah.
Because he has helped me grow spiritually. I wouldn't say that we're equals or nothing, but he has helped me grow to a point where our friendship is different.
Yes.
It's more just friendship than mentorship now.
Right.
And we need that.
Yes. Well, it's a good thing too. You want to be not necessarily equal to your Pauls, but you want to be striving to achieve their level of knowledge, their level of wisdom, their level of knowledge of Scripture, their basis, because that means you're growing. That means you're getting to a place where, I can remember when Lacey and I first married, we couldn't communicate. And so we went to see a couple that helped counsel us, because we could not talk. Like when we fought. And it was because we were right fighters, as they put it. And, now we're to the point where we can help couples. Right. And we're not having to rely on them as much. So now we're kind of in that same place that they were. And that's where you want to be. You want to continually be progressing to that point where there's people who you are now leading.
That's right.
Because if you're not growing.
That's right.
And that's what you want.
And it makes you accountable, right?
Yes.
Those Timothys, if you are doing it correctly, right, they will make you accountable, because you want to help them grow.
Yes.
You want them to be able to spiritually progress.
Yep.
Right. And that puts a lot of pressure on you, right? That is different than again, like a friend. Right. Or a mentor. Right. So it puts you in a place that, okay, I have to be responsible, right? I have to be responsible with my actions, because I have somebody looking at me.
Yes.
I have somebody looking up to me. I have somebody that needs me to be on my game.
Yes.
Right. And to where there is a lot of weight, but you see it riddled throughout Scripture. Right. Yeah. And consistently, there's those three positions. Almost every man that is in the Bible has those guys. Right. I think of like Elijah and Elisha. Right. I think of obviously Paul and Timothy. Right. I think of I don't know why my brain just went
blank.
Think
of Jesus and his disciples.
Jesus and his disciples. Right. And look at where they were after Jesus left. Yeah. Right. Jesus did not hold them down. Jesus built them up to a place that when he was no longer around, they were able to shine. Right. They were able to shine. And that's the goal.
Well, yes. You want whoever you're mentoring to almost surpass you. Yes. You want them I don't know, this kind of sounds bad. I don't know if we can put Star Wars in here, but I almost kind of think of like a Jedi. Yes. Like you want to become the master Jedi. You want to be that person that yields that lightsaber better than Obi-Wan and all those other people. You want to have so much knowledge. And anybody who knows Star Wars better than me, if I've screwed that up, just don't comment. It's fine. Suddenly all my YouTube shorts that I watch is all Star Wars. So. But you want to be that person that is continually growing, and you want to see the people underneath you growing to a level where you want them to surpass you, not necessarily because you're doing wrong or something, but because you have led them so well. Right. That they are just taking it and they're running with it. Think of all the different men that you've led a men's group who are now they're taking control of it. They're going over it. It's because of your spiritual leadership that they're now growing and it's blossoming into something even better, because that's what the Lord wants us to do. We have to continually be raising up the next generation. And we do that by leading them into the places and the processes that they should be. And we want them to do even better than us. That's we want to do it well, but I want you to take it and make it even better.
Well, and I think that's spiritual leadership, right? Yeah. In its finest. Yes. And when you have a church.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Cerema Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection. Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Or a ministry, right? If it's going to grow, there has to be men that can help other men come along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think of giants in the faith in our church.
Yes.
Right. Brother Marvin.
Yeah.
Right. John Sells.
Yeah.
You know, Chuck Lambert, you know, these guys that are, again, steadfast, that they're full of wisdom. They're full of knowledge, that mostly because they've lived those lives. Right. And they've come out on the other side. They've allowed the Lord to work in their lives.
Yes.
Now they're in a place where they can allow, or they can help other men,
mm-hmm.
right, reach that level of spirituality.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And, yeah, and a lot of it sometimes it's just, let me help you not make the same mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Don't do that. I've done that. Please.
Right. I think it's some of the guys that I've taken underneath my wing, and I'm like, bro, listen, I know it's frustrating, but I promise you don't want to make that decision.
Out of
promise.
Everything that I can tell you, I know this is true. I've been there. I've done that. Don't do it.
Yes. I've been sent to the pastor's office because of it. Don't.
But that's how we get to that point.
That's how
we go through and we learn from it. And every season that you're in, there is a lesson to be learned. Mm-hmm. And if we as spiritual leaders are going to ever teach other people, we have to learn the lesson first. That's right. Think about school. There's no way that you can go to the next grade without learning what you need to learn in there. Right. First, and then you can progress to the next grade. It's a stepping stone. That's the same thing with spiritual leadership. You learn whatever God needs you to learn in that season, learn that lesson, and then continue to the next season. And it's amazing though. So, some seasons are hard, some seasons are great. Not every season is bad when the Lord's teaching you, but a lot of times the best lessons that you learn are in the darkest seasons. That's right. And it's not necessarily to torment you or to make it bad. It's because that's when you get to grow the most. Sure. And that's the most exciting blessing. There's so many seasons we're going through right now, especially with my family, that, there's attacks over attack after attack on all different sides. And I was talking to my parents the other day and I said, but just imagine the blessing that you're going to get. I said, because the greater the struggle, the greater the blessing. That's every single time. I was like, but through those, you get to teach the next person how to do it. You get to walk them through that path. And that's what we're doing as spiritual leaders. We're walking the next generation. It could be your kids. It could be somebody that the Lord's put in your path, in your ministry. It just depends on who he needs you to talk to. Right.
And if you're going to be a spiritual leader, those mentors that you place in your life, right, that you allow to feed into you are so crucial.
Yeah.
Right. They are so crucial. They game changers, really. I mean, seriously. And I can't really emphasize that enough. Allowing somebody, putting yourself in a place that you allow somebody to correct you.
Yes.
To help you, even theologically, and stuff. I remember, just a funny story. Whenever I had gotten into apologetics real big, right? I was driving my dump truck and stuff, and I would text Josh all the time. I'd be like, "Hey, you got time for a talk?" And he knew. He'd call me, right? And I'd be like, "All right," I'd just unload questions. I'd be like, dude, what do you think about this? Dude, I've been studying this. What do you think about this? Right. And he would, and of course, Josh.
He's got answers to everything.
Yeah. And he's going to be brutally honest with me. Right. Yeah. Well, you're not, maybe you should view it this way. Right. When you look at it context, and he would do that, and then sometimes he'd be like, "I didn't know that." And I was like, "Yes, you got him."
Taught him something. Look at that. Write that down, Josh.
Yeah. And so, but to have those people that you can, one, trust, right, as a spiritual leader, and two, give permission to correct you,
Yes.
Right. Give permission to correct you. Give permission to kind of be a spiritual father.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
In your life. And listen, there is no age limit on a spiritual father. Right.
No, there's some kids who lead me sometimes.
Yes.
Think of Lucas Reason, Josh's son.
Right.
He'll come to me and he'll be like, I think we need to do this. I'm like, I believe you. Let's do it. Because they've had that spiritual foundation that's been building their whole life. Like my wife, like I trust her spiritual guidance. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, I'm the leader of the home, but I also know that she hears from the Lord and that she's been through stuff to be a spiritual leader. And I'm never going to discount anything that she says. Now I've done it before and it's got me into loads of trouble and I've made myself go through hard seasons because of that.
Right.
But it's not necessarily the 60-year-old man that lives next door or goes to your church who's the elder. Sometimes it's somebody who's just right down the road, your wife, a kid that you're leading, just because of their willingness to surrender everything. Yeah. And sometimes it's kind of funny how he does it too.
It is kind of funny, and most of the time, those people are in your lives in that position for seasons, mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
There is something that you can glean from them. There was a sign that I had read. It was like, I don't know. It was like one of those sports things. It said, how did it go? Something about you don't know everything, be teachable, mm-hmm. Right? Or people who think they know everything are not teachable. I can't remember how it went. Anyways. But it's true.
Right.
Right. If you look at even superstars, mm-hmm. Right? You look at somebody like, I don't know, Tom Brady, right? When he was playing football, mm-hmm. He had coaches.
Yeah.
Even in his elite status, right? Which I hate to I'm not a Tom Brady fan. Or Aaron Rodgers or
it's bad in his mouth.
All these guys, you look at a wide receiver, every position, mm-hmm. Right? Even the elite people have their own coaches.
Right.
And if we are going to progress, if we are going to be the spiritual leaders that we need to be, mm-hmm. in our families, to our wives, right? We need spiritual guidance.
Yes.
Right. Go ahead.
Well, think of it like this. So, combining your analogy just now, think of it like the Olympics, someone who's training. You've got that person who sees it, but they're on the outside. They're looking in. They know the whole situation. They know the whole scenario, mm-hmm. but they're able to step out and just see the big picture.
Right.
And that's the spiritual leaders that we need, is the person who they've been in the trenches. They've been in those positions. They've been in the exact season you're in or similar, but they also know the foundations. They know the rules of the sport. They know the rules of everything else, and they know the foundations, and they can see the big picture. Yeah. Like Michael Phelps. Yes, he could swim fantastic. Okay. Right. However, there are times where he could have DQ'd or he could have not held his stroke longer. And so there's a certain point in swimming where if you hold your stroke too long, you can be DQ'd because you're not swimming enough. So unless you're out looking, you're not going to reach that resurfacing marker. You're not going to see it because a lot of times it's on the lane line. So think of it like that. There's this person who you trust to look into your life, who's not going to judge you, who's not going to do anything, who has been through it to correct you. And sometimes that correction's not, you hit that resurfacing marker, you came up, but you're willing to accept the fact that maybe I didn't.
Right.
And those are the men that we're talking about. Those are the men or the spiritual leaders, whoever it may be, that you're willing to accept that possibly there's a different, better way to do something, or you're just ready to hear the correction. Hey, you screwed up, bud. And this is how you do it better.
And to be able to take responsibility, right? So some of that on our part takes spiritual maturity.
Yeah.
Right. I think of the way that I handled things 20 years ago, right? When I was, 20, 22 years old or so. And the way that I handled them now.
It was only 8 years ago for me, just to put that perspective.
the attitude that I have, I am the king of the world. I am,
untouchable.
Untouchable. You know what I mean? I'm superhuman. All those thoughts that you seem to think. When you mature, right, you realize that, hey, I'm not unbreakable. Right. I'm not superhuman.
Yes.
Right. All those things that everybody told me not to do whenever I was young, no, don't lift those motors by yourself. Don't do all that stuff. Make sure when you are lifting weights, you have good form, all these things.
Right.
My body now is paying the consequences for me being stubborn then. Right.
But you are.
And now I'm the one going, hey, don't lift that by yourself. Right.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Don't do that. There's a guy that works with me on my crew, and he's young. He's 22 years old.
Yeah.
And he's that way. He's just, man, phenomenal worker.
Right.
Hard worker. And but he'll go lift up, and I'm like, dude, don't let me help you.
Don't. Yeah.
Let me help you. And
wait till your back goes out and you're 30 and you just bend over to put your shoes on, and then now your back's out.
Exactly. And you wake up every morning and your knee creaks, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. You just wish you had a little bit of oil.
Yes. Yes.
Man.
But that's wisdom, right?
Yes.
And you only obtain that by, learning.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is that, again, you go back to being able to learn from other people's mistakes.
Right.
For the most part, outside of the physical traits of me, it's something that I always tried to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I didn't really realize the importance of that.
Right.
Until I was older, and I was like, now I'm thankful.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that, for example, I had an uncle that was strung out on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
He spent most of my teenage years in prison.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to be that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't. One of the stupidest things I think I've ever heard is I have to make my own mistakes. You're an idiot.
Go ahead.
You know what I mean? That's so moronic.
Learn your lesson.
Yeah. Like, why? Why is that necessary for you to do that?
Yeah.
Anyways, it's immaturity.
Yeah.
It's immaturity. The same thing applies spiritually, right? We do the same things.
Yes.
Don't put yourself in that position. Don't, hey, listen, there's a way that you need to study the Bible. Hey, there's, don't take on more than what you can chew. That's a big one, right? You know what I mean? All these different things, which I still haven't learned my lesson there. And
I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to stay over here quietly.
But that's it. It is spiritual maturity to be like, you know what? Maybe they're right.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't take on. For me now, because it is something that I've done for far too long, right? Whenever I am mentoring people, I have people who I have kind of put underneath me that I'm giving responsibilities to and stuff. Right. I ask them, what is your capability for more?
Mm-hmm.
You need to pray about that. You need to talk to your wife about that. You need to, right? This is a discussion that you need to have.
Yes.
Is there capability for more, or is there not? If there's not, that's okay. We need to, if there is, okay, whatever,
right.
Because they've always they're young. They have these vibrant ideas, great ideas, right? And I'm like, okay, but do you have capability for more?
Right.
Right. Can you take something else on?
Yes.
As a spiritual leader, for me, that is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way, that I am trying to instill in them, right?
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pate. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
At a young age, hey, this is something that needs to be prayed about consistently.
Yes.
Yes, your ideas are good. Maybe they're not for you to do.
Right.
Right? Maybe you'll have somebody come up underneath you that can help you do this, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was never like that.
No, but sometimes we as the spiritual leaders, we have to have a discerning enough heart to know that it is too much, because sometimes we'll ask and they'll accept,
right?
And
just
we'll know
we asked.
Yes. And we have to know, hey, that's probably too much. Let's see if somebody can help us do this, or, hey, I know that you're more than capable of doing this, but let's see if we can get somebody else to help us with this. Yeah. I mean, I've been told many times, because I'm a yes man. You ask me, I'm going to try to do it no matter what it means. And I've been told many times by leadership in the church, not necessarily a bad thing, but they're like, you're doing too much. You need to calm down. Yeah. And I don't ever take that as a bad thing. I'm like, you're right. Yeah. I understand. Go ahead. What do you need? You need me to find, and then I twist it. You need me to find somebody to help you do this? I'm like, shit. And they're like, no, we got this. But you have to be willing to be both. You have to be willing to be told no. Right. Like, hey, that's a great idea. I don't think that you need to be doing that right now, because you need to be focusing on this. Yes. Because even the devil can use our commitments too. Oh yeah. And our willingness to be committed to whatever it is, because then we can't fully develop whatever the ministry God has given us to do. That's right. Because we want to say those things. And that's where that check comes in. Yeah. That's where that spiritual leadership of saying, I'm feeling checked in my spirit on this one. I said, let's chill out. And so that's where you have to have that correction, but also as a spiritual leader, you have to have the discernment too. Yes. You can be so involved in church that you are lost, that you're doing no good for the kingdom of God. Oh yeah. And here you are the entire time, right? You were working in, I remember when Zach took over as youth pastor, right? They had just brought him up for the church and all that good stuff. And I told him, I said, listen, if I could give you any advice, it's this: you do not get churched when you work at a church. Yeah. Right. Your personal Bible study is the most important thing that you can rely on. Right. Right. You have to, you can no longer, it's different now. Right. And it's because I did it wrong. Right. I did it wrong. And so, learning those lessons and being able to pass them on, being able to, from Zach's point of view, being able to take that and be like, you know what, maybe he's right. Yeah. Right. Maybe he's right. Right. To have those people in your life, not only is it part of spiritual leadership, you influencing the people around you, you pouring into the people around you, but it's also the tools that you need. Right. Right. To become the spiritual leader that God has called you to be. Right. Yes. Right. And there's sometimes, going back to two sides, sometimes the lesson you learned is not the lesson of the person that you're teaching, but they need to heed the words that you're saying. That way it keeps them in check from the beginning. You know what I mean? So like with Zach, like, yes, he needed to hear that, hey, you don't always get fed. So you need to make sure you're being fed. Yes. Because he may not have been pouring everything in, but from the very beginning that started his ministry off correctly. Right. That was a lesson that started from that point in time, so that kept him from doing those things. And that's where you have to be able to receive it. That's where you as the Timothy have to be able to receive what the teacher's telling you, or what your mentor is telling you, those types of things. And filling that role, right, of both Timothy and Paul, right? Because really you play all, even though you need those three aspects, you play all three of those aspects. Yeah. Right. Those are three different sides of yourself. Yes. Right. Being able to be teachable and being able to teach at the same time. Right. Right. And still being that steadfast person for somebody else. It can be kind of difficult at times. Yeah. Right. One of the downfalls is that you can become so used to being to teaching that you don't want to be taught anymore. Right. Right. Or you can be so reliant on being taught that you don't teach. Yeah. Right. Or you can be so reliant on that you negate your friends. Yes. None of those are healthy. No. None of those are healthy. The balance is maturity. Right. Right. Now, of course, obviously nobody's going to do it perfect. No, it's going to take time. Oh my goodness. I don't know if anybody ever does it perfect.
right?
Mm-mm.
But being able to continually grow, to continually push, to continually become better.
Yes.
Is maturity.
Right.
That is maturity. And so taking those roles on and allowing spiritual leadership, the influence inside the church, inside your relationships, inside the community, allowing those relationships to affect you properly,
Right.
will enhance your spiritual leadership in every aspect.
Yes.
In your marriage, in your relationship with your children, right? In your relationship with people outside of work,
right?
Or at work, those different types of things. Because, let's be honest, the vast majority of us work secular jobs.
Yes.
Right. And they need our influence too.
Yeah.
And having those positions in your life, right? Having those friends. I think about this often. I was talking to my son the other day, and, I work construction, right? So the type of people that I work with are rough, right? Around the edges.
Yeah.
They're rough around the edges, right?
I like to think they're big old teddy bears, but some of them are not.
Well, most of them are good dudes.
Yeah.
Right? The vast majority of them are good dudes. Filthy mouthed, right? The things that they talk about, the things that, right? My relationships that I allow in my life keep me from the need to be a part of that. Right? My friendships, my mentors,
right?
My responsibility to my Timothys, right? Keep me from having to feel like I need to be influenced by that.
Right.
Right. They need my influence.
Yes.
I remember I was telling somebody the other day, I started this mentor program, right? This coaching program. And one of the mentors that I had in this, and I was asking him, I said, how do I reach everyday men? The everyday, because at the time I was driving a dump truck.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I reach just the everyday guys? The guys who get out there and bust their butts every day, trying to raise a family, that want to be good dudes, that want to be good fathers, that want to be, they don't know how. The next thing I know, I'm placed right in the middle of them.
Yeah.
Right. And I realize these people need my influence.
Yes.
Right. And they don't, how do I say this? They don't need the side of me that preaches at them all the time.
Right.
Right. I've learned this. If you're going to affect the secular world, for example, the men that I'm around all the time, if I'm going, the way that I can affect them the most is be the hardest worker out there.
Yeah.
They may not respect me the way that I believe, but they'll respect me as a worker.
Right.
Right. And in time, they'll want to know what I have to say too.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like I talked to a chaplain the other day out of Virginia. I think he was out of Virginia also. He said he became a chaplain at a police station there. And he said it took him 3 years being in the trenches with these guys.
Right.
Right. Doing ride-alongs and doing all this stuff before any of them would ever even open up to him. Right. Sometimes it takes time.
Yes.
But again, I go back to those influences that we put in our lives, those Pauls, those Timothys, those Silases, right? Those positions help us be the influence that we need to be out here.
Right.
They are not our Pauls, Silases, and Timothys.
Yes.
Right? Hopefully one day there'll be a Timothy.
Right.
But they are not, and they cannot fill that role, right? That in order for us to be successful in being the influence that we need, those three positions are crucial.
Yes. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You have to have a little bit of everything. I mean, you can't. So that's going to sound bad, but I like food. So you can't just have all meat and potatoes all the time. You have to have, I know, right? And the bread and the carbs, anything else. But you have to have to get the full nourishment for your body. You have to have a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. You've got to have, the mentor salad. You got to have, the Timothy who you're guiding, you're leading, you're taking along with you. And you got to have those Silases because let's be honest, mentoring is hard. It's a lot. Yes. And sometimes you just need those people who are like, I'm with you, bud. I got you. We're doing this. And as a Timothy, you need those Silases too to say, I know it's hard because every part of this is not easy. No. You've got an enemy who is trying to attack you, is trying to tear you down, who's trying to tell you that you are below and not above, that you are the tail and not the head. And we as mentors, we're trying to flip the narrative and we're trying to tell them you are above and you are not below. You are the head and you are not the tail. That's right. And that's the hard part is you have to have all of it. You can't just you have to have somebody that you're leading because like you said earlier, that keeps you in check as a leader. If you have no one that you're leading, where is that accountability for yourself? There is not one. You can go and do as you please because you have nobody who's looking up to you. I mean, think about, even with your kids, when they come to you and they say something or do something that is wrong and they learned it from you, there's that just kind of like defeat in yourself that they learned that from me and I shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
That accountability goes to the negative. But when you have that Timothy who is looking to you for the good things, to how to live a Christian life, how to walk in their daily devotions, how to read the scripture, how to walk with discernment, how to walk in wisdom. When you have those things, it keeps you propelling to the next place. That Timothy then helps the mentor go up too, just as the mentor goes down. The Silas helps the Timothy move forward. The Silas helps the mentor move forward. They all three work in cohesion, just like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They are all three in one. Yep. They are all serving a purpose and they all have a purpose, just like everybody who is in your life, whether you are the mentor in that season, whether you're the Timothy in that season, or where you're the Silas in that season, you are bettering the gospel and you are keeping them as the head and not the tail. You're keeping them to let them know that they are above and they're not below. That's right. And it's so crucial. It's so crucial to everything that we do. Yes. When it comes to spiritual leadership. Because they help guide us along. They help teach us. They help push us along, and if you're truly going to be, and I don't know if I've already said this in a way, but if you're truly going to be effective spiritually, the people you choose to put in those spots, listen, sometimes you will choose wrong. Yeah. Right. I have had people in my life that I thought were spiritual mentors. Right. That I'm like, this is not, this person's got to go. Yeah. I can no longer have this person in my life. Right. I thought I had people that were true Silases in my life that were not. Right. Right. I've had people that, I've been hurt by Timothy's. Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's probably been the most often, right? Yeah. Because, you said it best. Mentorship is hard. Yeah. It's messy, right? People most let definitely. You down. You pour, as a matter of fact, I was just discussing one of the guys that I was trying to pour into. He's recently going through a divorce, and I was thinking about all the hours of mentorship that I put into him and tried to help him overcome his insecurities and all those things. And yet in the end, he allowed them to win. Right. Right. We can't make decisions for them. No. Right? And my point in saying that is this, is that it can be difficult. Yes. But at the same time, I look at all the men that have come through and sat underneath me in the men's ministry since 2016. And I look at people who are now running their own ministries and people who are, whose marriages are flourishing. Yeah. Who, you know what I mean? Who are no longer alcoholics, who are no longer, right?
just as messy as it can be, it can be just as even more so rewarding when they're like, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe I should try this.
Yeah.
Maybe I should spend more time on my work. Maybe I should treat my wife different. Maybe I should, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, you know, and so it's worth the risk is what I'm trying to say. It is worth the risk. Yes, it can hurt you. Yes, it can be messy, but I promise you it is worth the risk.
Yes. So
is finding the Pauls and the Silases. Just because you may have chose wrong, right? Maybe this mentor that you thought they weren't the person that you thought they were.
Right.
Right. Okay. You let them go and you find another one.
Right.
Right. Same thing with the Silas. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It sucks.
Yeah.
It hurts emotionally. It hurts. Right. You've invested in them. You've allowed them to invest in you. And then it turns out they're not the people that you thought they were.
Right.
It hurts.
Yes.
It absolutely, it can be devastating at times, but that doesn't mean that we quit.
Right.
Right. There are too many people out there that are reliant on us, right, to be better, to just give up and be like, okay, well, that didn't work out, so I'm just going to be a recluse now. And, I'm not going to allow people to influence me, and I'm not going to influence anybody else.
Yes.
And I know people like that.
Yes.
Right. I know people who've been hurt, who had, that are just like, all right, I'm done. I'm finished, and it's like, no, you're not.
No.
Yeah, you're not. I'm sorry you got hurt, but this is not what God's called you to do.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times we make somebody else's story our story, and it's not the case. I mean, being a Christian is hard. Being a mentor is hard. Being a Silas is hard. Being a Timothy, everything is hard. And there are times where we slip and we fail, but we don't hold the people who fail to our story. Like we need to learn from it. We need to learn kind of what they did in their mistakes and, how not to do that again. But every person that God puts in your life is there for a reason.
That's right. Even the bad ones. Even the bad ones.
It's always teach you a lesson of some kind. Even the good seasons, the bad seasons, there's a lesson in everything. But sometimes it's just so you don't have to walk through the season. Sometimes you do because you choose not to listen. We have that free will. We have that free will to listen. But a lot of the times, if somebody who we think is a mentor is put into our lives and they end up doing something that necessarily a mentor wouldn't do, it's not necessarily because they're a bad person or anything else. They're human, just like everybody else is. Sometimes they slip and they fall, but the fact that you're growing is the fact that you notice that they failed. You notice their slip up. You notice where it's at. And that's where we get to the point where we're able to actually grow. We see ourselves growing is because, yes, it's almost like the mentor, the student surpasses the teacher kind of thing.
Right.
Yes, I'm now going from that. And you kind of switch roles in that. Now you have the opportunity to lead the Timothy. Maybe you become the mentor instead of the mentee. And in those situations. And it's a circle. It's a flow. It's just how things work sometimes.
Yeah. And this is also the importance of men's ministry, right? Or really just ministry at all, right? Because you find those people inside of ministry.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, I'm a huge advocate for men's ministry, not because I run a men's ministry, but because I believe in men's ministry. Because you find your Timothys, you find your Pauls, you find your Silases, right? Brothers in arms, in those positions. I'm going to be real honest with you. Those positions do not need to be women. They don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that a woman can never pour into your wife. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I think of all the spiritual giants that we have in our church. Jenny Miller and Louise Marvin, and have they ever spoke a word over me? Have they ever given me? Absolutely, but they don't need to fill those roles. They're not men. They're not our relationships with them do not need to be that close, right?
Right.
And so men's ministry is so crucial, and so you as a listener, I really want to encourage you, if you are not a part of men's ministry, find one.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And if you can't find one, start one, right? if you have the capacity for it.
Right.
But
listen, there's a lady down the road, and this is a women's ministry, but it kind of relates. She just wanted to share a book with somebody else, and it started with one person. Now there's like 10 or 15 that meet with her.
Yeah.
I mean, start it small. It can be in your house. It can be anywhere. But the fact that you're willing to accept that responsibility and start a ministry to help feed into other people or feed into yourself, because sometimes you're being fed just as much as anybody else is.
I promise you it.
I mean, they come in there, and it's rejuvenating, honestly, sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and if you do it right, you will learn more than they will.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You can only teach a certain amount. Between all of the things that I do, teaching apologetics and the men's ministry and stuff, I promise you, I've learned more than I've been able to teach.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's because I have to make sure that I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I take those positions very seriously. And two, just studying, right, brings out, good grief. I don't even know where to start. We could be here all day. I'm not even going to get into all that.
But I got time for that.
Yeah, but seriously, and so if you're not a part of men's ministry, become a part of men's ministry. And if you can't find one, start one. Look for those people in your lives, the Pauls, the Timothys, the Silases. Look for those positions. They will help you grow. And even if you do choose wrong, it's okay. Find another, right? Do not give up. The Lord has placed you in this season. I think of this sometimes. The Lord chose to put us here now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, He's got it. He could have done anything, and yet He chose to put us here, 2025.
Yeah.
Right. On purpose. We have purpose. You have purpose, and God has given you tools. And some of those tools are the people that you surround yourself with. So I really want to encourage you to find men, if you do not have them, to pour into yourselves and find a Timothy. You may say, man, I'm not ready for a Timothy. And, and to where that may be true. But at the same time, you need to be held responsible, right? A Timothy will make you responsible, because if you do it again, if you do it right, you will understand that you have to learn in order for them to learn.
Yes.
And it'll help mature you. It'll help you grow. It'll help you, pour into your life. All of those things. Find these people, and of course I want to encourage you to, if you've got any questions for us, email us, realmen@palaceofpraise.com. You can find us on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. And as always, I want to end in a prayer. Holy Spirit, teach us to be leaders of our homes, of our communities, and of our churches. Teach us to be godly, courageous men. In Jesus' name, amen.
You've been listening to Real Men Talk. If you'd like to get in touch with us, shoot us an email, realmen@palaceofpraise.com, or visit our website at realmenministries.us. You can also message us through social media. If you're a man age 16 and up and would like to be a part of the conversation, join us at the Palace of Praise every Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. If you don't have a home church, consider joining us for worship on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. Palace of Praise is located at 1400 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. New episodes of Real Men Talk drop every Thursday at 5 p.m. on all major podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook. Real Men Talk is a production of Real Men Studios in cooperation with Palace Media Services.